It's a very flexible event system, and a subset of this is the messenger application, but another subset of this, together with the Matrix RTC, is the base building blocks to create the metaverse. THIRDROOM.io is a good example for this. And maybe use case for this could be a conference like this. So you can have a hybrid conference, so you would see the presentations, the virtual room as well as in the real room, and I think that would really solve an issue. I think the challenge about the metaverse really is to find actual problems you can solve in a meaningful way.
I agree.
Check it out, THIRDROOM.io, it's pretty cool. It's a really fast game engine running in a web browser doing 60 FPS. That's really impressive.
Most of what we've seen in the metaverse has been around that hybrid virtual event space for now, and I'm sure that's common of others. Jared?
Yeah, so that's this is a fascinating topic to me because, generally speaking, technology takes 10 to 15 years to get real mainstream adoption, right? Like that's about right. I started working back then since that are going to be playing with this kind of technology moving forward. So I think that we vastly underestimate the willingness of younger generations to pick up some new technology and start doing things with it and accepting it as part of like everyday life, right? Like my youngest daughter at one point walked up to a giant display ad in a Best Buy and tried to push on R and the XR and everything else to dismiss it so cavalierly. I think that the younger people will pick it up and it'll start to become more and more a real thing, especially given the number of people that are investing in that area. It is, like I said, despite the fact that I think a lot of these companies are VC or equity backed, it's probably one of our biggest areas of growth right now. We have a lot of new customers, maybe not revenue wise, but net new customer wise, definitely. And they're doing some interesting things. If you're in the metaverse quote unquote world, you've probably heard of Spatial.io. They're a customer of ours that's doing in-browser 3D spatialized audio movements using an avatar that as you get close to somebody, your volume goes up. As you walk away, the volume goes down. All of that stuff running over our platform, which was never designed out of the box to be a quote unquote metaverse play. It's all using WebRTC, right? And they have a progressive experience that starts in a browser and then goes to a headset once you want to step out of that, and you can continually get more and more advanced with your experience. Those are the things that are like literally happening now, and they're monetizing it through different ways. Those guys are using NFTs and digital art and so on. Other folks are doing it more in the gaming world, plugging in Unreal as opposed to Unity. I mean, it's a thing, it's happening, there's people doing it, and there's people that are, when I first started in the AR world, I remember probably for the first 5 years, I don't think I saw a single person making money. Like, everybody was losing money left, like, and not small money, big money, like a lot of money. But they're producing things that other people are starting to pay for. We did one of our tickets that people paid, so.
If you're losing money and losing lots of money, the real need.
For things like metaverse, I'm going to succeed in that. I don't think it's a single monolithic solution.
Let's hope not, for the sake of open source video call applications. But if we can hang on for a few more years, we'll that was great. Thank you so much. Please stay on.
How's it going? Yeah, it's
Q&A afterwards. Is that Q&A afterwards? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The communication data in their products and businesses. In your business or product, and how to really stitch it with the rest of the audio data stream that you're currently operating the business. I'm sure you all are running some sort of automation initiatives or data analytics initiative, and this is specifically for you, because if you have communication data which is not being converted from that unstructured way in which they are stored today into really all the insights and metadata that can be extracted. So much correlation from what people are talking to what activity you are seeing in products can be stitched together. And that's really where we are going to spend our majority of time today. Like I said, the unstructured audio data is going to be the focus of our conversation. Some of you might be already converting that audio into transcription, but that's not enough. There is so much more context and understanding that is hidden behind just words and keywords in this entire audio content that we're missing out today. And all the knowledge that can be extracted from that audio data and when the correlation happens with the rest of your business. So integrating audio in your data stream can happen from several of the channels. If you're already setting up some sort of an ETL pipeline or a BI dashboard or using some sort of an application that leverages all this communication to show the experience that you're building, or running your own research or analytics group when in your business that is looking into what people are talking and how we can better coach our agents or get ahead of our customers or understand where churn is, you can leverage not just the activity data that you might be looking at today and text data that exists in form of chats and emails and communication on ServiceNow as a support ticketing system, or Drift as a chatbot or a virtual assistant interface, Salesforce in terms of all the email communication, or Slack in form of chat data. But today our focus from this conversation standpoint is going to be primarily of the audio content. There is so much of audio content that you're generating today, given the times that we live in, on Zoom meetings, in sales conversations, in customer success, which go unused for the underlying, what does your infrastructure looks like? Approach structure to be able to dialogue understanding and the unpredictable human behavior that usually happens in mapping that you'll have to do. Clarity of just other audio features in your clarity of sort of a solution, assist someone as the conversation is going on, or alert or make changes while the conversation is happening. How sensitive is it to impact the conversation or communication while it is happening to an event that can be analyzed and looked into later? Does that automation need to be in real time or after the fact? Based on this, you can make a decision on what is a priority for your business. But these three are some of the core aspects as you think about your own audio intelligence. In this presentation, we will take an example of using the audio data to evolve customer experience. I know all of you today are truly thinking about retention, how to really avoid any churn, how to get ahead of our customer requirements, how to personalize and attract any new customers and prospects, how to speak to the customers and adapt to what they want to be spoken with, not send cold emails, send what is really needed, and how to truly nurture the customers at their preferred communication channel, or the acquisition, and then all the phrases or similar. A project where you can push that data out. They talk about their preferences, they talk and update objections. You can look at all that data and make very informed decisions. And then also success metrics from a customer retention, churn, or NPS standpoint, or even measuring that whether the people from your organization that are talking at all these different channels, are they communicating with empathy? What is the behavior analytics at all of these aspects, such that it can also inform your internal and external training programs. So just doing a one step deeper into each of the capabilities and what you can look for today when you're thinking about building these experiences or these automations. Look for entity detection and as well as redaction if you're thinking from a compliance standpoint. You can look for either your own infrastructure APIs to redact, de-identify or anonymize all the sensitive information so that you're always in compliance. Your customers trust you with their own personal data. It's look for a system that can easily recognize to understand written just like that, and that's why I mentioned to be able to specialize in conversation data and audio data. You can then use these entities to be able to replace with synthetic data from a compliance standpoint, but you can also use these entities in its true form on recorded calls to then go and update your market and lead scoring like we talked about before. There are tons of PI, PCI, and PHI entities that are that could be relevant for your business, all the way from personal information to the things that must be redacted if you're from a call center standpoint, or health information, again, that is extremely sensitive. Sentiments, which are also very good low-hanging fruit for you to be able to implement directly from the audio data itself. There are sentiments that can be extracted on a polarity based, at sentences, at the whole conversation level, at every topic of the conversation that is being talked about, as well as based on tone and emotion. There are several ways to extract these sentiments. You can extract sentiments again in streaming as well as asynchronously, depending upon what the use case is for. I have some of the use cases here that I captured that will help you guys think through, what you can build, like call tracking or agent assist, or understanding the quality of the call, analyzing the trend of how the call went, or even creating alerts or coaching moments within this, and using your data to inform some of those analytics within the platform. Or you can do it asynchronously as well. Sentiment can also be detected based on the meaning and intent of dialogues, because sometimes politeness, anger, empathy is a combination of the tone as well as the content and the intent behind the scenes. And also, depending upon the use case, you can look for a low latency sort of an inference for sentiment, or completely asynchronously. Intent detection is another really important aspect that will cover all the use cases that we talked about in the beginning. So there are, you can find some predetermined intent, topics, tones, insights, or any classifiers. They all contribute towards detecting intents. Now, most of these classifiers are traditional ways of building classifiers requires you to gather a lot of data. So to be able to modernize that infrastructure stack, look for techniques like zero-shot learning and inference that can help you do this faster and is more scalable as you go through building different types of intents within the business. That way you gather less data and use more conversation context to be able to extrapolate it semantically and find out all the different patterns in which people are speaking about the same thing. Also remember, the intent detection in chat versus and talking to a virtual assistant is very different from the intent when people speak naturally in conversations. So your system, whatever you are having, should be also built for that. Leverage some vertical and pre-built intents, and also build a system internally to be able to capture that data and information for you. Or if you're working with a third-party vendor, try to create this library of intents or use and leverage some vertical specific intents that could really accelerate the go-to-market for your own solution. And then just also, depending upon your use case, you might need multilingual support and intents in different languages, or just English could work. So take a look at that. So I know we're running short of time, but before we go, and there's so much more that you can do with audio data in your business, but this is a very high level bird's eye view for Symbol as a platform. We talked about some of the capabilities and some of the use cases, but Symbol is an API platform that lets you have kind of like a plug-and-play experience to be building your own voice AI infrastructure. If you're building something internally, you have your own data science team. You can also always augment using these APIs and make sure that you can really consolidate all the understanding together and have your teams work on more correlation and more business insights, and then leverage the understanding from the platform to be able to really accelerate your product building or solution or automation that you're building internally. We have APIs that can ingest and SDKs that can directly ingest WebSocket based audio stream. We support several protocols. We can also support SIP and PSTN based audio data as well, which is critical for telephony systems, and as well as asynchronous recordings. And we only talked about entities, sentiments, and intents, but from our platform standpoint, there is much more that you can do with conversation analytics and really advanced context-aware analytics that goes all the way from detecting action items and questions that could be relevant to certain parts of the business, to going and looking at very detailed speaker engagement analytics, or looking at abstractive summarization that can be very helpful in automating note entries in CRM. And all this data is easily extractable using APIs in real time as well as asynchronously, depending upon your use case. The platform is built with an optional persistence layer, as well as enriching your own data and intelligence stack with most of the metadata, which is broken down from this unstructured audio data that we looked into. And obviously there's so much more, and I don't want to bore you all, but I will definitely leave you behind with the thought of going and exploring into the platform and seeing what all can you really do and unpack your audio data with. I truly believe that we are at a verge from a business and just an ecosystem standpoint where we can truly unlock the audio data and use it and look at it like just another data stream in the business and truly capitalize on all that information that we are losing today. So please don't lose that information anymore. Record, store, analyze in real time, whatever you can do. But there is so much golden nuggets that can help your business today. So let's use what we have the most and build a strategy sooner than later. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to everyone.
And in person. And seconds. Excellent. So,
hey everyone.
There you go. So now for the live round of applause. Do we have any questions for Surbi?
Listening.
Any questions? Presentation was great. It really, compared to like last year when you were part of TAD, it's like, that's a lot more interesting. So that was a really good presentation. Again, I always feel embarrassed when I'm having to ask questions, but given how you're positioning the platform now, what are some of the, I guess, latest use cases that you're applying Symbol.ai to?
Yeah, a lot of our customers are primarily using us for streaming intelligence. So wherever within less than 100 milliseconds or 60 milliseconds a decision needs to be made or an intent needs to be detected in live human-to-human conversations, that's where we are getting applied the most. So real-time assist, real-time recommendations, tracking NPS in real time and recommending agents on how to change the way that they're talking to affect that NPS. Or tracking answering machine detection or voicemail, things like that. So a lot of real-time inference. Yeah, mainly in the customer experience use cases that spans across fintech, telco, insurtech. These are some of the industries that we've been playing around.
Gotcha. And how have you been dealing with, especially if you're sort of more call center, the audio can get pretty rough. I'm just interested on, some of the issues you see around, if it's like a 3G phone where you've got, just appalling audio coming in, how you manage that, because the speech detection can be, the word error rate can be a bit high.
That's right. I mean, because we have the WebSocket-based integration, Alan, I think a lot of our customers naturally use us on top of WebRTC-based solutions. We don't have a lot of companies that are using us in the traditional audio recording way, except for one. And for them, we try to fine-tune and customize the model how much as we can. But yeah, we're not. I don't think we're experts at bad audio speech recognition.
No, that's a lot of the audio, but cool. That helps them clarify.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The focus is. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just checking if there was any more questions. If not, again, thank you so much. Excellent presentation.
Yeah.
Really, enjoying the sort of progression of your business.
Thank you so much for listening, you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. And then in the background, Jerry, are you there? Oh, maybe. That's our last presenter. We're just waiting for him to. Oh, let's see what he said in chat. Oh, there you go. Close the chat. I think you're muted. Yeah, because Survey was on and we were hearing her loud and clear. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you now loud and clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
All right, good. I think it's my headset condition. I'll just take it off. Okay, great.
So you're the last presentation before we get a break, and I've been working them hard throughout the day. So I'm just going to cut straight to you and give you a run through your presentation. That would be great.
Okay, fantastic. Am I running the presentation myself, or are you running what I sent you?
Yeah,
I can share.
if you can share, that's going to be the easiest.
I'll share.
And I can see you voted.
Oh, yes, I did.
You got the sticker.
All right. Let's see if I can do this where I'm sharing the document and not my screen. Do you know? Let's see. I see screen share. Let me do document share. All right, so everybody can see my PowerPoint I've got there now?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm going to not belabor this because I know I stand between you and dinner and cocktails or whatever you're doing. I hope you had a really good day so far. And I'm pleased to be part of this and provide you some information about UMail, and specifically UMail Protective Services and what we do to help CPaaS providers as well as the remainder of the unlawful variety. So you've probably seen the agenda already, just sharing that with you for now to see if you can glance at that. But perhaps what I should do is just jump ahead just a little bit here, just to give you a little bit of context about UMail and UMail Protective Services. So UMail itself goes back to 2007, starting off as a OTT app provider with really just a visual voicemail app, which at the time was relatively novel because otherwise you had to use your carrier's voicemail and it wasn't visual. You had to just listen to it. You didn't get transcription. So fast forward probably about 8 years or so, we realized that we had to do something about the robocall problem. It wasn't going away. We had to minimally protect our own app users. So we did that, as I said, probably about 8 years after we launched the company. But then more recently, a couple years ago, we realized that since we're doing this for our own app users, which tend to be on the B2C side, consumers or small to medium-sized businesses, we realized that we've got this data, and why not make it available for the communication service provider ecosystem, as well as enterprise. So there enters UMail Protective Services, which is not a separate company. It's really more like a separate division of UMail for B2B services. So just to give you that context, let's jump right in. So there's many different types of unwanted calls and ostensibly illegal calls. Some of them are outright scams, like the couple that are on top, and others are unlawful for other reasons. They're not necessarily a scam per se from a commerce perspective, but they're unlawful from a telemarketing perspective. And here is an example of an unlawful call. Now, if we look at this from the bottom up, from a fraud perspective, they are referencing Microsoft. It's not overt fraud in the sense that they're not saying that they are Microsoft, and we do see those, by the way, at UMail. In this case, it could be fraud from the implication of it being an association that's not merited, that's unsubstantiated, because they're implying that they know something about you, they're implying that they know that you have Windows, et cetera, et cetera. From an unlawful perspective, we take into consideration that type of fraud, brand impersonation, or some unsubstantiated association, but we also look at things like the Federal Trade Commission's telemarketing sales rule. I've got a hyperlink there so that if you want to click on that later, you can check that out. But one of the things that they say is that you must self-identify, which they sort of do here. They don't say that I'm calling from Microsoft, but they sort of identify, inferring that they're associated with Microsoft But what they don't do is provide a callback number. And that's one of the things that telemarketing sales rule says that you must do. By virtue of this having a relatively high fraud score and a very high unlawful score, it's very spammy. But also you can have spam for other reasons. One of the things that happens with spam is that the algorithms, emails included, are heavily weighted based on crowdsourced feedback. And spam being a highly subjective thing, it's not uncommon for the spam score to be weighted heavily based on the fact that people just don't want to receive these kinds of calls. In this case, it's downright unlawful, so they definitely don't want to receive it. So what's happening here in the ecosystem? What's happening is that you've got some bad actors out there. Sometimes they're coming through international gateways, sometimes they're coming from a domestic origination. And you've got companies out there like Umail that are protecting at the intermediate network level. So we have customers that are transiting calls. They're not originating or terminating, they're just transiting. And to the extent that those customers use the Umail services, we are facilitating stopping these unlawful calls from ever reaching a terminating carrier. But which is really confusing because I was on a call taken. But there are level maybe better. There are ways to deal with that from a real-time perspective. A solution recorded audio left behind as a voice first, whether a industry sometimes using with that is apply digital finger make know how your customers are very, very important, and you really need all scenarios. Protect CPaaS, and we using our service is going to block that. Same is true for unlawful. If it's fraudulent or if it's unlawful for other reasons, such as violating state statutes, maybe they're calling too early or too late, or maybe they're violating the telemarketing sales rule, then we'll score that 0.8. Spam score, we don't recommend blocking on that. Just because something is considered spammy does not really should not be prudent to block that as a result of that. So, so we don't advocate that happening. The way this works from a technical perspective, we have an API which can either be queried on a per call basis. It's a REST-based API, by the way, or we have a version of it that can be cached. You get an update via the REST API, border controller level, or a soft switch where you're affecting PBX customers as well. Because in a terminating scenario, you can do that. You don't need to worry about latency. Identify the health of your numbers or the numbers that are brought. We believe what they're doing is they're erring on the side of extreme conservatism because there's so many numbers that have never before been seen or used, and they are automatically labeling them as nuisance call. But those other analytics engines, they use an event-based analytics approach. They're looking at the number of SIP messages, the frequency of SIP messages. Is it a number that's ever been seen before? Are they calling a number that's on the do not call list? Et cetera, et cetera. They're not looking at the actual payload. In contrast, looking at the payload, we can come up with some really interesting determinations. And I'm just going to skip ahead to the next slide because I think actually this one makes more sense. Here's an actual example of what we saw. I redacted the name of the company, but this was a legitimate bank that was making calls. And we actually had one of our customers call and complain to us because this was a customer's customer situation. Our direct customer called and said, "Hey, Jerry, why are you blocking this particular customer? It's a bank. We know they're legit. We know they're not doing anything wrong." So we checked to see what was going on. We found out that it was not a spoof situation. We do see those still, by the way, because of StirShaken not being ubiquitous and the problem that I mentioned earlier about losing tokens and TDM SS7 holes. In this case, it was in fact the bank that was placing the calls, but, and I remember this vividly, it was on April 1st and April 4th of this year, these three campaigns that you see here, they mentioned the name of the bank, but they did not provide a valid callback number. So we marked them as 0.8 blockable from an unlawful perspective. They were not fraudulent. They mentioned the bank. It really was the bank, and that was no problem. But so what we did from a remediate, following the rules, they didn't informative, and it got remediated. It got fixed. So this solution is this bottom one here. Customer example, we had a customer call us and very similar. They said, "Why are you blocking us?" The company but they did tell us it was a healthcare services company. We looked at the transcript and it said something, it was your typical courier scan. It said something about this very ephemeral. You know, they don't happen for very long. This is ongoing for. They may have used the dent though is that the spoofing stopped, and then we could clear the number and make it go back. Robocalls are associated with those numbers, and so you would see. So I kind of went through that as quickly as I could because I know I'm standing between.
Led you to block the numbers initially? Was there a customer complaint?
So the question
Okay.
is, you were able to hear it okay?
I'll repeat it. So I heard the question as what led us to block the call initially. So stepping back, first of all, we, as part of our sensor network, would have first had to have seen that number used in an illegal manner, meaning that our sensor network picked up on them scoring. And again, that threshold we use is 0.8. So when our customers block, we also have a SIP proxy, by the way, so we can do this. We also do other things too. We look at the Federal Trade Commission's reporting of numbers that are used in conjunction with legal activity. Look at things like is a number on the DNO that do not originate. So we do look at other things, but from an algorithmic perspective, we look at what's happening with our sensor network. Good question, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Go for it.
So for your solution to work, I believe you need data. So is it a North America specific solution or or the solution is open for all geographies?
Great question. So the question, as I heard it, is it North America only? So we are primarily the United States currently and part of Canada. So by and large today, it's a North American solution. We did acquire a company in the UK, and we are starting to expand our sensor network there. As a priority basis, one, we need to either have our sensor network, good guys, but especially the bad guys, because the bad guys don't want to leave behind these messages. They know all that email. They don't want us knowing that they're doing bad stuff. So we have smart greetings that sound a lot like a human being answering. So we can't always get that kind of advantage from a plain old honeypot. But if we can have some smart types of greetings with honeypots and get a pretty high capture rate, then we can expand much more easily. So we are looking to expand. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Excellent, great question. Anything else? It sounds so similar to Voxel.
He's my boss. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I hope you.
The room's going to get set up between 6 and 7. You can hang out outside, you can go downstairs, but Patricia would like you to sort of clear out a little bit from here, and there will be lots of great food, beer, and wine to consume. Okay, so this is where we'll be able to do the networking, all right? And then remember, it's 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Okay, so no drinking into, what was it, Adam, 3 a.m.? 4 a.m. No. Okay, we need you here at 9. Okay?
You network before it's not. Otherwise, networking is.
Could you give me some text so I can put it in for that last
I
session?
emailed you earlier.
Yeah, that was for the presentation. Not for the